Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Two Set Violin. We did a video before where we were like, you have 5 pieces that sound impressive, but they're actually not that hard.
Good value.
Now today's the opposite, right? So we're gonna present 5 pieces that are way harder than they sound. That means if you play it to someone that's not like a violinist, they might just be like, ah. But if you play these pieces well to any serious violinist, they will be like, respect. So it's still good value. You just need to know, and hopefully with this video more people will know. So, alright, we got 5 pieces here. Number 1, Bach Andante. Well, actually, to be honest, pretty much all of Bach's 6 sonatas and partitas. I think Brett...
Very hard. I spent too much of my life on it.
Yeah, Brett played this piece for...
Bach competition.
No, you played it for Kendall.
I did, and it got me in.
You played it for like an Australian national level competition. Before you explain why it's harder than it sounds,
I'll just play it first.
Play a bit, yeah.
Doesn't sound that impressive.
And it's meant to sound casual. It's not meant to sound difficult. But the reason why this is so hard is because you're basically playing soloist and the accompaniment at the same time, right? Not soloist, but
You're playing
melody.
the melody and the accompanist.
Yeah. So you only have one bow and one left hand.
It's easy to break the melody because you're worried about the accompaniment. So an example would be like this.
That melody was like... It's meant to sound like, do you want to play a melody? I'll do the accompaniment.
Yeah, so it may sound like this.
But now do that together, right?
It's not just that. Actually, the tricky part about this is you have to tune to the A and G string from the D as well. So if you get it wrong, if you pick the wrong E, you're screwed because the fourth doesn't work there.
Yeah.
And there's lots of perfect fourths and perfect fifths, which is very exposed. That's why it's so hard. And that's for the whole piece.
Sounds like a casual stroll, but it's actually like underneath the hood.
Dude, the fingers like... And you have to play, let's say we're playing on a D string on this plane, right? You can move around here, and you're still on a D string. Yeah. But for this, you literally have to lean as close as you can to the G string without touching it.
The tiniest angle change will make or break in this song.
So if you go, oh, whoops, you touched it.
Yeah.
Oh, I broke it.
Cool. That's number 1. Number 2 is a piece I actually learned when I was in high school, but now that I'm more experienced, I realized I never played it properly. Beethoven Romance number 2. Actually, both the romances are hard.
Yeah,
but
they're pretty hard.
I think number 2 especially sounds deceptively easy.
First of all, it's a freaking F major.
It's a hard key to
resonate and make your violin ring. Because F, we have no open strings. Your half the struggle is trying to make your violin resonate.
And a lot of it is like high up on the A and D strings, which are the least resonant, right? Like high E, powerful. High G, also powerful. But high A and D are a bit... And then to sustain the sound, to have these long lines without any breaks in the sound, and to make it sing is actually very difficult.
And you gotta balance all your vibrato for all your fingers too. Like your first, second, third finger are stronger, right? And normally your pinky is a lot weaker, so the pinky needs to be just as strong to make the melody sing. Sounds easy, but not easy.
Same with this concerto too. The concerto just sounds like a bunch of scales.
Yeah.
But as all musicians know, to play scales musically is like the hardest thing.
And you're super exposed.
Yeah.
Like Beethoven concerto is like, there's no forgiveness on intonation. Number 3, Mozart violin concerto number 5.
Five is definitely the most musically complex. It was funny because when I played on Virtual Tour, right, you'd think that I'll be practicing before going on stage my Paganini or my Shostakovich. But I was actually, backstage I was practicing my Mozart the most.
Oh, for sure.
Something about the Mozart is like any tiny bit of tension.
I feel like it's too easy to make it sound not musical and boring.
It's not even that. Mozart needs to sound effortless. So when you have tiniest bit of like tenseness in the sound, it doesn't sound effortless.
Yeah, and then you don't want to sound like you're playing a romantic concerto on Mozart. Whereas it should be really elegant, playful, and joyful.
I don't know, I just found that the Shostakovich, right? Even when you're a bit more tense, you can kind of dig in and it still sounds like Shostakovich.
Mm-hmm.
But with Mozart, the articulation needs to be so refined. And if you're a little bit tense, like the phrasings, like... that's already not good enough, right? You can't just be like... that's not Mozart, is it? That was tense already.
Every articulation is like, you have to hit the sweet spot in terms of bow, contact, sound, even the left and vibrato. If it's not a sweet spot, I feel like it breaks the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you can do everything well, like Eddie was practicing a lot, like...
Yeah.
If you miss that, you just ruined the whole phrase,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, one note kills everything.
And then musically for Mozart, you have to bring out the characters in the music. It's almost like a opera, right? With different characterizations. And you have to think about how this phrase is meant to sound like sexy soprano or like the funny tenor or the handsome baritone or whatever, right?
And under pressure. Actually, all of them so far under pressure. But I feel like out of the 3,
Mozart and Bach are the ones under pressure.
you're crack.
Because you can't hide. See, like Shostakovich, right? I can like, I'm a bit nervous. I can just be expressive. But Mozart, you can't do that. You can't go... that's not Mozart. It has to be...
Yeah.
I think the bow speed, the mastery of the bow speed to make it interesting, the phrasing.
Ultimate control.
Also that Mozart has one of the most infamous openings. Like this first note, orchestra plays like 2 minutes, you haven't touched anything, right? And then the orchestra stops, silence. The whole concert hall.
Yeah, it's like, it's your turn.
The first 2 notes, you have to appear out of thin air perfectly, like... it just needs to sound like the sunrise.
Yeah, and because you're on the console, you need to make the sound. You can't just get away with
Yeah.
no sound. You need.
But then it can't sound pressed.
It can't sound pressed. The sound needs to kind of go into you.
Yeah, the control you need for that opening is just like, oh man.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a simple melody, right? It's just an A major triad, and because of that, ironically, it becomes very hard to do it well. Number 4, Bach at it again is Bach. had to put this one in because I struggled learning this one a lot, and I kind of just gave up on performing it back in uni. I wanted to learn the whole first sonata. And it's interesting, right? Because no one cares about the Siciliano.
Because no one likes it.
It's not even that impressive sounding, but it is so damn hard. Kind of like the andante, right? You're playing two things. And then, out of nowhere. So actually, it's not melody and accompaniment, but it's rather there's two voices having dialogue. So there's these two voices, and you have to phrase each one in a way that makes sense. And then on top of that, you have like chords and double stops, which are freaking hard. But again, in this context, they don't sound flashy, so they just sound hard. But can I just say, on top of that though, the one thing that really is like the game killer for this is just a freaking dance.
Oh yeah, you gotta
pulse it. So it's gotta feel like. Oh, it sounds so bad. I was trying to like get the feeling, but you'll notice that I'm missing all my strings.
Yeah, like I feel like it's easy to get distracted by either trying to do the dance or forget about the dance and getting the technique.
See, if I get the technique, then it'll end up sounding like. But now it doesn't sound like the dance, right?
Yeah, it's not a dance anymore.
It's too rigid. So yeah, Siciliano. It's a. And last one, decided to put this in because I've been trying to learn this recently. You know concertos, right? Second movement is usually the chill one, usually. But Brahms' second movement is a different beast. It's because you're not playing the melody. I did some research and I found out, Sarasate refused to play this concerto.
Sarasate.
Yeah, and you know why I said, I don't want to accompany the oboe for a whole second movement. The second movement is actually chamber music. The oboe starts with the melody and then you're ornamenting on the melody, but you're kind of weaving in and out of melody and accompaniment. And so a lot of the times you'll find you're playing just arpeggios and like little figures, and to make a sound musically make sense in the whole is so hard. Like where's that arpeggio come from? Well, actually, hear the cello start going ba 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 ba. So actually, you're just continuing what the cellos did. Now you have the melody again, but not really. You're kind of just an ornamentation. And now here's the melody. Ba 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 ba. And then you continue. So you're kind of like
switching gears a lot, actually.
Yeah.
You also need to match the sound to the right instrumentation.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's just gonna sound weird.
And you have to phrase it to the harmony, otherwise it doesn't make sense. If you play it straight, it sounds really boring. Like imagine I just played.
It sounds like a study.
Yeah, it doesn't make musical sense. Yeah. So I found this second movement to be a lot harder to make it sound musical and convincing than any other concerto.
Yeah, because Sibelius, you know what's going on.
It's just the melody.
Tchaikovsky is saying.
You have the melody, you do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The orchestra follows you.
The orchestra
right?
works with you. But Brahms is like, no.
You work with the orchestra.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the other way around.
It's like humbling for the violinist.
Of course, I wouldn't say something.
He's the most.
I just want to play virtuosic.
I want to show off the violin. Well, cool. There you go. 5 pieces that are actually harder than they sound.
There's a lot more. There's a lot of string quartet and sonatas and other things, so like orchestral stuff. We didn't want to go into. And of course, there's a bonus number 6, car flash scales.
Oh yeah.
Anyone that can play that whole scale book perfectly,
respect. And it's like the. Whatever.
Yeah, the 10.
So if you want to make this sound good and impress everyone, the only way to do it is to practice. Lots of practice and lots of lessons. Need good teachers to help you. See you guys next time. Action like button and bye bye.
Bye bye.